Chapter 1: Marley and Marley. In a small corner of the London city, where the lights of lanterns reflected off the white snow and winter stars twinkled in the sky, lived a lonely old man named Ebenezer Scrooge. He was a chilled man, with a cold gaze and a heart even colder than the external temperature. Christmas was nothing more than a troublesome obstacle in his mundane daily life. Christmas Eve was approaching rapidly, but Scrooge paid no heed. His thoughts were occupied only with counting golden coins, and his heart was frozen like a mysterious icy river. He was miserly, distrusting of the world, and indifferent to the needs of others. His only companion was his clerk, whom he rarely saw, and his only joy was the accumulated wealth. However, this Christmas Eve promised something different. As the clock struck 12, and the city drowned in silence, a spirit entered Scrooge's room. It was no ordinary spirit. It was Jacob Marley, Scrooge's former partner who had departed from this world 7 years ago. Marley was adorned with a long chain of closed padlocks and heavy keys, dragging down to the ground. It was a chain of selfishness, greed, and lust for power, self-forged during his lifetime. He came to warn Scrooge that he, too, would face a similar fate on the other side of life if he did not change his ways. "Scrooge!" Marley exclaimed, his voice sounding like the rustle of the wind and the clinking of chains. "You must change before it's too late. You will be visited by 3 spirits. They are your only hope." And so, Scrooge became a participant in an extraordinary spectacle, a meeting with the spirits of Christmas. Scrooge, unaware of what awaited him, initially rejected Marley's warnings. Instead, he focused on his accounts and muttered curses under his breath. Marley, however, did not relent, keenly observing every step of his former partner. As the clock tower struck the first hour of the morning, Scrooge lay in his cold bed. The moon cast a shining light on the floor when suddenly, a spirit appeared in the room. It was the ghost of Christmas past, dressed in a cloak of woven mist and holding a candle that illuminated the dark corners. "Scrooge," the spirit spoke with a soft voice, "prepare for a journey into the bygone years." Without a word, Scrooge found himself in a different place, in a different era. It was a school, and in it, a young boy with sad eyes named Ebenezer. His only companion was a book, but even that could not soothe the boy's loneliness. "Remember, Scrooge," said the ghost of Christmas past, "you once had dreams and joy in your heart." Scrooge watched his younger self working for Mr. Fezziwig, a generous employer who hosted magnificent Christmas parties for his employees. Fezziwig was a good man, full of joy and generosity. His parties were legendary in the town, and every employee looked forward to them. Even young Scrooge smiled and danced with joy. The ghost of Christmas past transported Scrooge to another scene, a moment when he stinted on his kindness, neglecting love and friendship. Scrooge observed how his heart became harder and people left, leaving him alone. Back in his room, Scrooge felt the weight of memories and the pangs of conscience. The ghost of Christmas past disappeared, leaving him in turmoil and reflections on his life. Suddenly, the second spirit appeared, the ghost of Christmas present. It was a joyful spirit, wrapped in a cloak adorned with fir branches. Its smile was like a sunbeam, and its eyes sparkled with happiness. "Come with me, Scrooge," encouraged the spirit. And so, they set off on a journey through contemporary London. Scrooge saw people preparing for the holidays, laughing, and sharing with others. The sound of carols reached his ears, and the smell of baking filled the streets. The spirit led him to a humble home where a poor family lived. Although they had little, they shared what they had and enjoyed each other's company. Scrooge understood that true wealth lay in love and community. In the next scene, he saw Tiny Tim, the sickly son of Scrooge's clerk. Scrooge's heart trembled with concern. The ghost of Christmas present explained that although Tim was ill, he was also a source of joy and love for his family. "If nothing changes, Tim may depart soon," the spirit whispered. "But it depends on you, Scrooge." Scrooge felt moved and understood. The ghost of Christmas present disappeared, leaving him back in his room. Suddenly, in the dark corner, the third spirit appeared, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. It was a formless spirit, surrounded by a cool light. Without a word, it pointed out future events. Scrooge saw his own body on a deathbed, surrounded only by accumulated wealth. No one mourned him, and the only feeling that surrounded him was indifference. Then, he saw the clerk's house, where death came for Tiny Tim. Scrooge's heart broke at the sight of the family's sorrow. The ghost of Christmas yet to come asked him quietly, "Is this what you want, Scrooge?" Scrooge plunged into darkness, powerless and terrified. Suddenly he woke up in his bed. It was Christmas morning, and the clock struck 12. Scrooge took his hands off his face, tears glistening in his eyes. "I must change my life," he exclaimed to himself. He rushed through the streets of the city, joyfully entering shops and offering money to those in need. People looked at him in amazement, and some didn't even recognize him. Scrooge laughed with joy, feeling the weight of years lifted from his heart. At last he reached his clerk's house, that of Bob Cratchit. He entered with a smile, ready to offer help. Instead of excuses, Scrooge promised to improve working and living conditions for Bob and his family. As evening fell, Scrooge invited all his employees to a Christmas party. He distributed gifts, shared a Christmas wafer, and the sounds of Christmas carols echoed in his house. When night settled in, Scrooge returned to his warm home. He sat by the fireplace, surrounded by the shadow of the Christmas tree and flickering candles. His heart now had room for love, generosity, and community. He was a changed man, ready for a new, better life. And so, on that Christmas night, Scrooge discovered the true meaning of Christmas, a time of love, reconciliation, and kindness towards others. Chapter 2: The First Spirit. Morning unfolded like a tapestry of possibilities in the heart of London, and Ebenezer Scrooge, having awakened from the dreamlike trance of his past, embraced the dawn with an open heart. The sunlight streamed through his window, casting a warm glow upon a room that seemed to have shed its cold, dreary demeanor overnight. A profound transformation had taken root within Scrooge, and the promise of a new life filled him with both wonder and gratitude. Eager to immerse himself in the vibrant spirit of Christmas, Scrooge hurriedly dressed and made his way to the window. Throwing it wide open, he invited the crisp winter air to fill his lungs. The city below resonated with a symphony of sounds, children's laughter, distant bell tolls, and the harmonious melodies of carolers, creating an orchestration of joy that played like a sweet serenade to his reawakened soul. In the midst of Scrooge's contemplations, a soft, melodic chime echoed through the room, and a radiant light enveloped him. Before him stood the second spirit, the ghost of Christmas present. Adorned with a crown of holly and carrying a cornucopia overflowing with festive delights, the spirit exuded an air of merriment that seemed to dance in harmony with the season. "Come, Ebenezer Scrooge," the spirit beckoned with a warmth that mirrored the crackling of a Yule log, "and witness the joy and abundance that Christmas bestows upon the world." In the blink of an eye, Scrooge found himself standing in the humble abode of Bob Cratchit, his dedicated clerk. The Cratchit family, despite their modest means, embodied a wealth of love and warmth. Mrs. Cratchit moved about the kitchen, orchestrating a Christmas feast with practiced grace, while the children reveled in the simple pleasures of their meager toys. Tiny Tim, the youngest Cratchit, radiated a spirit untethered by his physical frailty. His infectious smile spoke of a joy that transcended circumstance, and Scrooge felt a tug at his heartstrings. The words of the spirit resonated. Tiny Tim's presence was a source of immeasurable joy to his family. The ghost of Christmas present, like a benevolent guide, led Scrooge through scenes of Christmas merriment in various households. Fred, Scrooge's nephew, hosted a jubilant gathering where laughter and camaraderie flowed freely. It was a stark contrast to the isolation Scrooge had imposed upon himself for so many years. In another scene, carolers filled the air with melodies of goodwill, their voices becoming a bridge that connected hearts in shared celebration. Scrooge, to his own surprise, found himself humming along, the tunes rekindling a long-dormant sense of joy that had been buried beneath layers of bitterness. The day unfolded with an array of generosity and benevolence. Even the most unlikely heart softened in the embrace of the holiday spirit. Merchants closed their shops, joining the festivities, and people from all walks of life extended a helping hand to those less fortunate. The city, for a brief moment, became a tableau of unity and compassion. Yet, amidst the jubilation, the Spirit guided Scrooge to a scene that struck a poignant chord within him. In a room adorned with opulence and luxury, Fred sat alone, a figure of quiet contemplation. His recent words about Scrooge, a mix of humor and pity, echoed in the chambers of Scrooge's conscience. "He is richer in spirit than I am in wealth," Fred had remarked, unaware that his words would be the catalyst for Scrooge's introspection. Touched by the kindness and forgiveness displayed by his nephew, Scrooge felt a surge of gratitude. A desire to join Fred and his family in their celebration, to express his newfound appreciation for the true essence of Christmas, welled up within him. With a snap of the Spirit's fingers, they found themselves back in Scrooge's room. The ghost of Christmas present regarded Scrooge with an understanding gaze. "The day is not yet over, Ebenezer Scrooge," the Spirit declared. "Take the lessons you've learned and make amends. Your journey to redemption has just begun." As the Spirit gradually faded away, leaving Scrooge alone in his room, he knew that the time for change was now. Inspired by the love and generosity he had witnessed, he eagerly awaited the arrival of the next Spirit, ready to continue his journey of transformation on this magical Christmas day. And so, with newfound purpose, Ebenezer Scrooge stood ready to face the revelations that awaited him in the third chapter of this extraordinary Christmas tale. The echoes of Tiny Tim's laughter and the melodies of goodwill lingered in the air, propelling Scrooge toward a future where his actions would shape not only his destiny but also the lives of those around him. Chapter 3: The Second Spirit. As the second spirit, the ghost of Christmas present, dissolved into the ethereal tapestry of time, Ebenezer Scrooge felt a curious mix of anticipation and trepidation. The room, once aglow with the Spirit's radiant energy, returned to its serene state, and a hush settled over the transformed space. Embracing the residual warmth of the Christmas present, Scrooge awaited the arrival of the third and final spirit. The clock in the corner of the room ticked with deliberate cadence, each echo a reminder that the night's revelations were far from complete. Suddenly, the room darkened, as if a shadow had swept across the very fabric of reality. A subtle chill pervaded the air, and a ghostly figure materialized before Scrooge's eyes, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. This spirit, shrouded in an otherworldly cloak, emanated an aura of solemnity, and its presence bore the weight of destiny itself. "Come, Ebenezer Scrooge," the spirit's voice echoed like a distant dirge, "and glimpse the shadows of what may be." In an instant, Scrooge found himself standing in a somber graveyard, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth. Tombstones, weathered by time, stood like silent sentinels in memory of those who had passed on. The spirit gestured toward a particular gravestone, and Scrooge's eyes followed its spectral finger. There, etched in cold stone, was his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. The realization struck him with a force that sent shivers down his spine. A profound sense of vulnerability enveloped him as he beheld the finality of his mortal journey. The scene shifted, and Scrooge now stood in the familiar confines of Bob Cratchit's home. The room was hushed, the air laden with grief. Bob sat alone, his usually jovial countenance etched with sorrow. The family, once a source of warmth and joy, now grappled with an absence that loomed large. Tiny Tim's vacant chair cast a haunting shadow over the room. The spirit's silent narrative spoke louder than words. The loss of Tiny Tim had left an indelible void, and the Cratchit family struggled to mend the fractures in their fractured hearts. Scrooge, unable to bear the weight of his own mortality and the consequences of his actions, pleaded with the spirit. "Tell me, spirit, is this the fate that awaits me? Can these shadows be altered?" The ghost of Christmas yet to come remained silent, its enigmatic presence unmoved by Scrooge's pleas. With a mere gesture, the spirit transported them to a scene of bustling city life. People moved hurriedly through the streets, indifferent to the passing of a man whose life had seemingly left no mark. The city, absorbed in its own pursuits, carried on without a second thought for the one who had once walked among them. In a stark contrast, a group of businessmen discussed the disposition of Scrooge's assets. The conversation, devoid of compassion, focused solely on the financial gains to be made from the passing of a miserly figure. The coldness of their words mirrored the icy tendrils of regret that crept into Scrooge's heart. Desperation clawed at Scrooge's soul as he implored the spirit. "Show me, spirit, that I may change. I cannot bear this solitude and indifference." The spirit, unmoved by emotion, led Scrooge to yet another scene, this time a humble bedroom adorned with the trappings of a life well lived. It was the room of the Cratchit family, aglow with a warmth that contrasted sharply with the previous desolation. Bob Cratchit, surrounded by his loving family, raised a toast to absent friends. His demeanor, once weighed down by sorrow, now bore the lightness of gratitude and joy. The spectre of Tiny Tim was conspicuously absent, replaced by the tangible presence of a healthy, smiling boy. Scrooge, overcome with a cocktail of emotions, sought clarity from the spirit. "Is this a glimpse of what could be? Can I alter the course of these shadows?" The spirit remained stoic, its form betraying no inclination toward revelation. It transported Scrooge to one final scene, the scene of his own demise. The room, though richly adorned, was empty. No mourners, no loved ones, just an echoing emptiness that mirrored the spiritual vacuum Scrooge had cultivated in life. "Am I destined for such solitude, spirit? Is there no redemption for a wretched soul like mine?" Scrooge's voice trembled with a vulnerability that echoed through the caverns of his conscience. As the words hung in the air, the spirit, with an ethereal gesture, conveyed a silent imperative. Scrooge, recognizing the gravity of the moment, nodded solemnly. The scene blurred, and the room once again shifted, this time, to Scrooge's own bedroom. The ghost of Christmas yet to come, its task complete, began to fade into the shadows. Scrooge, left alone with the weight of the revelations, braced himself for the final chapter of this spectral journey. The clock, ever vigilant, struck a resonant chime, signaling the transition to the dawn of a new day. The room, once again bathed in the soft glow of morning light, held the promise of transformation. Scrooge, confronted with the stark realities of his potential fate, stood at the precipice of choice, a choice that would determine not only the course of his life but the lives of those he touched. And so, with the lessons of the past and the revelations of the present etched upon his soul, Ebenezer Scrooge awaited the dawn of Christmas morning, eager to seize the opportunity for redemption that beckoned from the horizon. Chapter 4: The Last of the Spirits. The echoes of the ghost of Christmas yet to come's apparition lingered in the room, and Ebenezer Scrooge, now alone with his thoughts, felt a profound weight on his shoulders. The visions of his potential future, stark and foreboding, played like haunting melodies in his mind. As the clock continued its relentless march toward the dawn, Scrooge paced the room, grappling with the revelation that his actions could shape not only his destiny but the destinies of those around him. The spectre of his own mortality loomed large, a constant reminder that time, once squandered, could never be reclaimed. Determined to alter the course of the shadows he had witnessed, Scrooge approached the window and threw it open. The city below, still cloaked in the serenity of pre-dawn, held the promise of a new beginning. The crisp air filled his lungs, invigorating him with a sense of resolve that had long eluded him. "I am not bound by the shadows of an ominous fate," Scrooge declared to the silent streets below. "The future is a canvas upon which I can paint a different reality." Embracing the newfound understanding that had blossomed within him, Scrooge dressed with purpose. The garments of his past, once threadbare and indifferent, were replaced with attire that mirrored his internal transformation. As he descended the creaking stairs of his dwelling, he marveled at the warmth that now permeated the once desolate halls. The city, still in the embrace of a slumbering dawn, bore witness to Scrooge's metamorphosis. The familiar corners and alleys, once trodden with apathy, now echoed with the purposeful steps of a man on a mission. The storefronts, yet to open for the day, awaited the arrival of a changed Ebenezer Scrooge. His first destination was the home of his faithful clerk, Bob Cratchit. The same home that had been the stage for both heartache and potential joy. Scrooge, driven by a newfound generosity, carried a weighty sack filled with provisions, a bounty that spoke more of compassion than of wealth. As he approached the Cratchit residence, Scrooge observed a scene vastly different from the one etched in shadows. Laughter spilled from the open windows, and the aroma of a hearty breakfast wafted through the air. Bob Cratchit, with a buoyant expression, answered the door. "Mr. Scrooge!" Cratchit exclaimed, his surprise palpable. "Good morning, Cratchit," Scrooge replied, a genuine smile gracing his features. "I trust this day finds you well." Before Cratchit could respond, Scrooge presented the sack of provisions. "Consider this a humble token of goodwill. Let us ensure that Tiny Tim has the strength to bless us with his laughter for years to come." Cratchit, overcome with emotion, could only manage a heartfelt expression of gratitude. Scrooge, his heart swelling with a warmth he had long forgotten, left the Cratchit home with a sense of fulfillment that surpassed any material wealth. The day unfolded with a series of benevolent acts that surprised even Scrooge himself. Charitable donations flowed from his coffers, supporting local institutions and initiatives aimed at alleviating the plight of the less fortunate. The city, awakening to this unexpected benevolence, whispered rumors of a changed man. As evening approached, Scrooge found himself standing before the door of his nephew Fred's home, the same nephew who had extended an olive branch in the form of a festive invitation. A resolute knock echoed through the hallway, and the door swung open to reveal a puzzled yet welcoming Fred. "Uncle!" Fred exclaimed, the lines of confusion gradually softening into a smile. "To what do we owe this unexpected pleasure?" Scrooge, steadying himself for a momentous confession, replied, "I have been blind, Fred, blind to the true spirit of Christmas. Your invitation, once dismissed with callous indifference, is now embraced with genuine gratitude. May I join your celebration?" Fred, sensing the sincerity in his uncle's words, welcomed him with open arms. The reconciliation that unfolded within those walls mirrored the broader transformation occurring within Scrooge's own heart. The night, once the harbinger of shadows and solitude, now became a canvas for communal joy. Scrooge, surrounded by newfound friends and rekindled relationships, embraced the revelry of the season with an unbridled spirit. The echoes of carols, once distant and muffled, resonated through the air as the city itself seemed to celebrate the redemption of one of its own. As the clock struck midnight, marking the culmination of a day that had altered the trajectory of Scrooge's life, he found himself standing in the quiet solitude of his own dwelling. The embers of the hearth flickered, casting a warm glow on the walls that had borne witness to a profound metamorphosis. In the midst of this quiet reflection, the spectral figures, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come, seemed to linger in the recesses of memory. Their lessons, etched into the very fabric of Scrooge's being, stood as a testament to the redemptive power of human transformation. The night had been a journey through the labyrinth of self-discovery, a journey that had traversed the corridors of regret and emerged into the open fields of possibility. Scrooge, once a miserly recluse, had become a beacon of generosity, kindness, and love. As the first light of Christmas morning painted the sky with hues of pink and gold, Scrooge stood at the window, taking in the breathtaking tableau of a city reborn. A city that had witnessed the reawakening of a man's soul and, in turn, had been touched by the magic of redemption. And so, on this Christmas morning, Ebenezer Scrooge ventured into a new chapter of his life, a chapter illuminated by the transformative power of love, compassion, and the unwavering spirit of Christmas. Chapter 5, The End of It. The dawn of Christmas Day cast a gentle radiance over London, and within the transformed heart of Ebenezer Scrooge, a profound sense of peace settled. The lessons imparted by the spectral visitors, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and yet to come, resonated within him like a timeless hymn of redemption. As the city stirred to life, Scrooge felt a renewed purpose coursing through his veins. The once icy currents of his heart now flowed with the warmth of compassion and goodwill. Eager to share the newfound joy that permeated his being, Scrooge set out into the festive streets, determined to make amends for the years of indifference. His first destination was the humble abode of Bob Cratchit. As he approached the familiar door, Scrooge couldn't help but smile at the anticipation of the surprise he had in store for the Cratchit family. He knocked on the door, and it swung open to reveal Bob, his eyes widening with astonishment. "Mr. Scrooge!" Bob stammered, clearly taken aback. "Good morning, Cratchit!" Scrooge greeted him with a hearty chuckle. "I trust you had a delightful Christmas Eve, but the festivities aren't over yet." With a dramatic flourish, Scrooge unveiled the towering Christmas tree, adorned with baubles and twinkling lights. He presented a hamper bursting with festive treats and gifts for each member of the Cratchit family. "Consider this a small token of my appreciation for all your hard work, Cratchit. And may Tiny Tim find endless joy in the days to come." Bob, overcome with gratitude, could hardly find words to express his thanks. The joy radiating from the Cratchit home became infectious, touching the hearts of all who witnessed this unexpected act of kindness. Scrooge continued his journey through the city, spreading generosity like seeds that would bloom into a garden of goodwill. He visited local charities, contributing not only funds but also his time and efforts to ensure that the less fortunate experienced the warmth of Christmas. The once isolated man became a beacon of community spirit, and his transformed demeanor was met with a mixture of awe and admiration from those who had known him as the miserly Scrooge. Streets that had once echoed with whispers of disdain now hummed with conversations of a miraculous change. In the late afternoon, Scrooge arrived at his nephew Fred's home. The atmosphere was festive, with laughter and merriment echoing through the halls. As Scrooge entered, a hush fell over the gathering, and then, as if orchestrated by fate, a spontaneous cheer erupted. "Uncle Scrooge!" Fred exclaimed, embracing him warmly. "You've brought the spirit of Christmas with you." Scrooge, humbled by the reception, replied, "Fred, my dear nephew, I've come to make amends and to partake in the joyous celebration. May the past be forgotten, and may the future be filled with shared laughter and love." The gathering resumed, and Scrooge found himself at the center of a circle of family and friends. The walls that had once separated him from the warmth of human connection had crumbled, revealing a newfound sense of belonging. As the day waned into evening, Scrooge, accompanied by newfound companions, strolled through the city's brightly lit streets. The air was alive with the melodies of carolers, and the scent of roasted chestnuts wafted through the crisp winter night. They arrived at a humble inn, where the weary and the joyous alike gathered to share tales and revel in the camaraderie of the season. The atmosphere was infused with the magic of Christmas, and Scrooge, once a solitary figure, found solace in the company of those he had come to cherish. The night wore on, and as the clock struck midnight, signaling the culmination of a day that had rewritten the script of Scrooge's life, he found himself standing before the door of his home. The flickering candlelight within cast a warm glow on the doorstep, inviting him into the sanctuary of his transformed dwelling. As Scrooge crossed the threshold, he took a moment to reflect on the extraordinary journey that had brought him to this point. The spectral encounters, the visions of past, present, and future, and the unwavering spirit of Christmas had woven a tapestry of redemption. Alone in his quiet abode, Scrooge approached the window and gazed at the starlit sky. "Thank you," he whispered, his gratitude extending beyond the realms of the seen and unseen. On this Christmas night, Ebenezer Scrooge embraced the gift of a second chance, a chance to live a life infused with the true spirit of Christmas, a spirit of love, compassion, and the boundless joy of shared humanity. The echoes of his transformed heart resonated through the silent city, a testament to the enduring power of redemption and the timeless magic of Christmas.